What's going on, everybody? When I did my first video in the series on the Monomyth, I think I kind of missed the mark on what I was trying to go for. I was going way too broad of a spectrum. So today I'm going to break it down a little bit further and go a little bit more granular to discuss the Monomyth with you. This is the hero's journey, the call to adventure. Before we get too far into the discussion, did you know that like 80% of you aren't subscribed to the channel at this point? I'm doing 2 videos a week, so be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you can keep up to date with everything we've got going on. Let's talk first about the hero's journey, and whether or not you know who Carl Jung is, or whether or not you've read Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, I guarantee you've experienced the Monomyth in some way, shape, or form. The hero's journey is a multi-tiered series of criteria, with the first step in that journey being the call to adventure. Whether that's reflected by Odysseus' journey in the Odyssey, Jesus' baptism by John the Baptist, Clark Kent's superpowers being activated by the Yellow Sun, or Shovel Knight going all ham on the Order of No Quarter to save Shield Knight, I guarantee you've experienced the archetype in some way, shape, or form through religion, stories, or pop culture. Today we're going to look at 6 characters from video games that really exemplify the call to adventure. And nowhere in video games is that more readily apparent than with our first game on the list, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past is one of the single greatest Zelda video games ever made, full stop. And for many, myself included, it's in the upper echelon of video games, period. A Link to the Past is full of touchstone moments and fully represents the call to adventure. We open in Hyrule, at Link's uncle's home on a stormy night, and Link, who is dreaming fitfully, is awoken by the voice of Zelda pleading for help. His uncle, armed with sword and shield, leaves as thunder clashes and lightning flashes, imploring Link to not leave the house. Of course, no good hero would just go back to bed, would they? So fearing for his uncle's safety, an unarmed Link follows him to Hyrule Castle, into the sewers beneath the castle, where he finds his uncle dying. Begging Link to save the princess, you're left with a tantalizing statement of, "Zelda is your..." And while Link was thrust into action by the death of his uncle, not every hero is thrust into action on a quest for nobility. Sometimes it's just as simple as needing to track down your demon boss's desserts. Prinny, Can I Really Be the Hero is such an interesting video game when you consider its source material. The Prinny characters are basically the Goomba of the tactical RPG Disgaea, with about half as many brain cells between them as they really need. With a penchant for calling everyone "Dude!", the Prinny are frequently minor nuisances in service to Etna who offer very little to the overall story beyond comic relief. But in the platformer Can I Really Be the Hero, we get a hero being called to adventure for the extremely noble reason of tracking down desserts. Okay, I'll grant you this is less the call to adventure and more the forced march to adventure, but we're still well within the spectrum of the situation. Our Prinny sets out to discover Etna's desserts alongside 999 of his fellow Pingu. And, like Link, who receives his uncle's sword and shield, Prinny here receives a red scarf to signify he's the leader of the Prinny Battalion. And while there are certainly more noble pursuits for setting out to right an injustice than finding missing desserts, the need to do something more than what you felt your intention was is a hallmark for the hero setting out on their quest. And honestly, there's something kind of awesome about taking the cannon fodder from the Disgaea series and making them the star of their own side-scrolling platformer. And their pursuit of snacks led them on the path to heroism. Okay, well, less evilism at least. But for one of our protagonists, the call of adventure happened because of aliens abducting his uncle. Stop me if you've heard this one before. You just want to go on a nice, quiet, relaxing tropical vacation. And that's exactly what Mike Jones from Startropics wanted to do. He was headed to Sea Island to visit his uncle. However, his Uncle Steve's abduction and disappearance pushed Mike on a globe-trotting and interplanetary adventure to find him. Armed with nothing more than a yo-yo at first, Mike is the prototypical early video game hero. Silent in voice, strong in action, and helpful to all who need him. From lost dolphins to sleepy princesses, Mike is the model of a hero. The story of Startropics is a classic fish-out-of-water story, with a hero taken from his comfort zone and being thrust into the world bigger than he'd ever known. Mike is almost like Din Djarin from The Mandalorian here, taken from everything he'd known and expected to thrive in a world bigger than anything he'd ever handled before, all to save his family. Family frequently plays a role in a reluctant character, and forcing them into the limelight. One of the most noteworthy characters from the last 2 generations was brought into life of adventure by the actions of his brother, as revealed in the 4th edition of his series. I've resisted talking too much about the Uncharted series on the channel because, spoilers, I could gush for hours about my adoration of this universe, my absolute love of Nate Drake, and how much I just truly cherish the stories from each game. And as good as all 5 of the Uncharted games are, Uncharted 4, in my opinion, has the best storyline. The game opens with you in a boat during a tumultuous storm, with you and your brother Sam fighting both the elements and very armed, very angry men. After a crash, the game flashes back, and that's where things get interesting. I know a lot of folks didn't particularly care for the young Nate section of this game, but for me, I really liked it. Discovering the motivation for Nate's love of adventure and his push down the road to who he is as the character so many love. I mean, the first chapter of the game is called The Lure of Adventure. You can't get much more confirmation of the Monomyth than that. As the first chapter unfolds, you discover that Nate and his brother Sam were left by their parents in the care of an orphanage. Sam is thought to be a bad influence on Nate, so much so that the fight Nate gets into for keeping his possessions and defending his family's name are blamed on Sam. But when we meet a young Sam, he encourages Nate to stay on the straight and narrow and to rise over the misdeeds of other kids. But he also encourages him with some light B&E on a quest for the missing family heirlooms. Nathan Drake is the closest thing we've got to an Indiana Jones archetype in video games right now, with parallels between their origins. Both were deeply impacted by something happening to them in their youth, and in turn it led them down to a path to a great adventure. And while sometimes that draws a clarion call to right wrongs inflicted on you by others, sometimes your own noble nature will cause you to push forward into heroism. Before the events of Persona 5, the protagonist was a quiet kid living in a rural area and minding his own business. One night on a walk home, he saw a man drunkenly assaulting a woman, and he intervened. This led to the man, an influential and evil politician, to fall and hit his head, resulting in our protagonist being placed on probation and receiving a reputation for misdeeds and horrible actions that are whispered about in hushed tones in his temporary high school. The desire to do the right thing, though, that's what caused him to go from just a guy to being the leader of the Phantom Thieves. In a departure from other protagonists in the series, it's noted that this protagonist persona, Arsene, was awakened by the protagonist's desire to help others, as opposed to just random cases of happenstance. And this desire to help others is what draws Joker to the other Phantom Thieves. Skull wants to right the wrongs of Kamoshida, Panther fights to protect girls that are victims of assault. All are thought to be troublemakers, yet all are united in their desire to save those that can't save themselves. Sometimes heroism causes you to do the wrong thing for the right reasons. Joker is a lot like Robin Hood in that regard. Robin stole riches to return them to the less fortunate, and Joker and the Phantom Thieves of Hearts are on a quest to cleanse the evil hearts of men and women to make society better for everyone. There's really nothing more noble than that. Of course, nobility doesn't always apply when you're just cleaning up your dad's cosmic-level messes. Alright, this will probably be the shortest entry on here, but this is one of my favorites on the list. Because the Prince of all Cosmos' call to adventure, while sure that road is paved with good intentions, it's decidedly the result of a familial error and his father's inability to do literally anything for himself after wrecking the entire cosmos. And then the dude vomits a rainbow on you. Of course, the interpretation of hero here is decidedly from a certain point of view in this game, as the heroic act being accomplished is thoroughly not beneficial to any of us here on Earth. For those that don't know, the Katamari being rolled up by the prince attaches objects smaller than it to be continuously growing ball of miscellany. That ball can roll up anything, from soy sauce packets to your little sister. And while, yeah, no one wants to be rolled up, it's the whole getting shot into space as a replacement star bit that seems a bit worse to me. The prince set out to repair the cosmos, and yeah, that's a noble pursuit. And he did what he was tasked to do by the king, but at what cost? At what cost? The hero's journey is a storytelling device that all of us, in some way, shape, or form, have experienced at least once in our life. We all have that one character in our life that was set forth on adventure by outside forces that they were not prepared to undertake, but they became a better character because of it. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite character is from video games that experienced that call to adventure. I want to know what game that is and what they experienced. Is it Aloy discovering technology in Horizon Zero Dawn? Or perhaps Arthur just wanting to seek some justice in Red Dead Redemption 2? Remember to like and subscribe down below, guys, and until next time, I have been Jay. I appreciate you being here. Remember to play more games, stay square, and adventure awaits. I'll talk to you soon.